As they'd walked inside the curry house, she'd wondered what she was letting herself in for. But it had been a pleasant surprise to find a warm and modern atmosphere. There were tables full of diners spread out over the ground floor, and a grand staircase leading upstairs to many more. The music playing in the background was modern rock, not too intrusive, yet loud enough to be heard over the friendly banter of people out enjoying themselves. This was the first time Grace had met her work colleagues since she'd got her new job as detective sergeant, a promotion from her former role in Salford. Grace had lived there for the past 23 years. She'd joined the police force after leaving university and had worked as a police constable before transferring to major crimes as a detective. She'd been quite settled in that role for several years, but when things took a tumble in her private life, she'd decided that she needed a new goal to aim for. Having taken her detective sergeant's exam last year, when a post had come up in her birthplace of Stoke-on-Trent, she decided to put in for it. She needed a change, somewhere she could start afresh, even though she wasn't quite sure it was a good decision to come back to the town from which she and her mum had fled all those years ago. But circumstances were different now. The man who had caused them so much pain was no longer around. After she'd been offered the job, Grace had got an invite to join the team for a night out before her start date on Monday. There was only one officer who hadn't been able to make it, someone called Alex Challoner, who had a previous engagement he couldn't get out of, although no one had enlightened her as to what it was. Around her, her new colleagues were sharing some in-joke. Then, suddenly, Nick Carter, their DI, stopped laughing and turned to her. "Sorry, we're ignoring you. You say you lived in Stoke when you were younger, Grace?" he asked. All eyes fell on her. "Yes, until I was 12, she replied. Then my parents divorced and I moved to Salford with my mum." "So you don't have many memories?" DC Perry Wright asked. "I have a few," Grace nodded. She could remember far more than she would ever share with them. The nights she'd heard her mum screaming as her father laid into her. The times there was no money for food because he'd spent it all in the pub. The days when he would go missing and be brought home by the police after being locked up in a cell. The weeks he spent with other women before fighting his way back into their house again. The double life he led that she knew nothing of until she was old enough to understand. "But I expect so much has changed since then anyway," she added. "Not much to write home about," Sam giggled, "but we still love it. And you'll soon know the place and its people, even the undesirables." Nick raised his glass in the air. "Welcome to the Major Crimes team." Everyone joined Nick in a toast. Only Perry, sitting opposite her, didn't lift his eyes to hers as well. He hadn't joined in the conversation much either, she'd noticed. The door to the restaurant opened, and several men came in at once. From her first-floor position, Grace looked down at the newcomers as their laughter filled the room, booming, loud and boisterous. She counted 4 of them, all casually dressed in shirts and jeans, lean, with biceps and quads looking fit to burst through their clothes. A waiter rushed across to them, and they were quickly seated, despite the busyness of the room. As she turned back to her group, Grace noticed the atmosphere at their table had changed. "Seriously," Perry sighed. "Can't we have one night out without it being a busman's holiday?" "They might not see us up here," Nick said. "What's wrong?" Grace asked, realising she had a bird's-eye view from her seat at the end of the table. Nick had his back to the group. "Meet part of the Steele family and some of their cronies." Sam nodded her head in the direction of the men. "They like to think they're untouchable." "They own Steele's gym in Badley Green," Nick informed her. "It's got a boxing club attached to it as well." "So it's a legit establishment?" Grace questioned, trying to keep her voice calm and professional. "Let's say it isn't just a place where you can go for a workout," Nick explained. "The Steeles are one of our local crime families. Their father, George, was murdered last year, his killer's still at large." Grace dropped her eyes momentarily, feeling her cheeks burn at the mention of that name, but none of the others seemed to notice.